welcome back to my channel, Tomcat Stitchery. I'm Whitney and I'm here with part 2 of our trouser sew along. We are currently sewing along with S8056. I'll pop a picture of that up there for you. And today we are going to finish our pants basically. And I will actually have, at the end of the video, if you stick around to the very end, I've got footage of me actually wearing the pants, the finished pants. So if you want to get a sneak peek of that before, actually you've already seen them in my lookbook, but if you want to see me in them again, wait till the end of the video and see me actually in the trousers. But yes, today's part 2. You should have already inserted your front fly, and I had a tutorial on that, and I will leave a link up to that above. Although I leave a link to that in the actual video too, so yeah, whatever. It's there. The card is there. So yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about fitting, because these pants are made to fit as you go, which is pretty genius. And yeah, that is it for today. We have got, let's see, coming up after, I'm not really sure when this tutorial is going up. I'm filming these in advance, but I think you're seeing this on the weekend. So, and I'm pretty sure Tuesday, yes, I'm pretty sure on Tuesday, it is the last day of the month. And I have got a really fun giveaway that's coming up. So you definitely do not want to miss Tuesday's video. And I'm talking about Me Made May. So in my plans in the capsule, I'm going to be doing a 12-piece capsule for me, actually 14. I think I'm going to throw 2 dresses in there too, or maybe a dress and a jumpsuit. I haven't really decided yet, but that I'm going to be just those 12 to 14 pieces of clothing for the whole month of May. So I'm going to be dressing capsule style all month of May. So I'm going to be talking about that in the video, and then there is a really amazing giveaway and fun thing that's also happening. So you definitely don't want to miss that video on Tuesday. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button, because you seriously don't want to miss when it goes up. So give me a thumbs up if you like this video. If you have any questions about the sew along, leave them down below, and I will see you guys on Tuesday. Bye! Welcome back to day 2, everyone. I hope you all found the zip fly tutorial helpful. But let's get these pants finished. At this point, you should have your fronts pretty much constructed, except this front crotch curve is not completely finished. There's still some that's not together because we stopped sewing at the notch. But your fly is in, all set and ready to go. Your pockets are in. And then as far as your backs, we only have the dart sewn. That's all we've got. And you'll also, there's the right side of a back. The backs are still separate. Dart has been sewn. But you'll also notice I've gone ahead and I have finished the seam allowances of both side seams on the front and the inner leg seams as well, and we finished the crotch seam of the front when we were doing the fly. And then the backs, I've gone ahead, and I like to finish these separately because I like to press everything open when it's all said and done. But I've done the side seam, the crotch seam, and the inner leg seam of my backs. So you'll definitely need to finish however you're finishing those off, bias binding, whatever. But I like to finish those off now before we go any further. Alright, so now it's time to basically baste our pants together. Now, this pant pattern is much different than anything else that I have ever, there we go, sewn with before, and I kind of love it. It's perfect for fitting on the go. Now, if you have any issues with your rise or anything in the rise part of the pant, that probably needed to be addressed before cutting out the fabric, so definitely do a muslin. If you ever have issues with like bunching of fabric across, you know, the front, or if you have issues with fabric puddling at your lower back, if you need like a sway back adjustment. I'm not going to go deep into those fitting issues, but I will give you resources on ways, things different people have done that are very explanatory on different, because there's so many fitting issues with pants when you get into like the fine details. So anyway, this is just very helpful for fitting on the go as far as just making things a little bigger or a little smaller. So what we're going to do is we're going to sew, you need to have your left waistband, your two of your backs, and your right waistband. And I use the ones that are interfaced because I want the interface pieces on the side of the pant that's facing the world. So what we're going to do is we are just literally going to sew these pieces onto their corresponding tops. So this is the right side of the pant when worn. So the right waistband piece is going to get sewn to this, and it should go to the extension, like through the extension here. And then the left side, the left waistband piece will get sewn here to this side. And don't worry about finishing your waistbands because those will eventually get covered up with a facing. And then each back piece will get a waistband piece attached to it. So let's do that, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so I have my waistband pieces that are attached here, and I've just trimmed the seam allowances down like half their normal width, and then pressed the seam allowances up into the waistband. So there you have it. And I just want to remind you that there's going to be a whole lot of excess on the left piece because that's going to be the tab that secures over, and you're going to want the right side should overlap by 5/8 of an inch from the underlap because that will the seam allowance to finish that off with the facing. Okay, and then our back pieces are all, you know, sewn and pressed up as well. So now what we're gonna do, the pattern has us sewing the fronts. Sorry, this color is like really hard to film. We're gonna sew, I'm actually gonna put you back on the tripod, and we are gonna sew with a regular stitch length the front to the back at the inner leg seam. And then we are going to baste the back crotch curve into the rest of the front crotch curve and baste our side seams to try them on. So I will put you back on the tripod and see you at the sewing machine. Okay, we're back at the sewing machine, and we are going to sew our inner leg seams. So this is the front pair of my pants, and again, they're constructed. The backs are still solo. And remember, we left this little bottom part of the front crotch seam unstitched. We still have not stitched that, and that's fine. So now we are just going to put our backs, well, one at a time, right sides together, and we're gonna sew that inner leg seam at 5/8 of an inch, and I'm just gonna use a regular stitch length. There's not really a reason to baste this because all of our fitting issues can be made on the outside. So we're gonna sew our inner leg seams back to front, right sides together, on both sides. It's gonna look like a really funny pair of pants when you're done. And don't forget that you need to stretch your back, just the way it's drafted. You're gonna have to stretch your back to fit your front. And that just helps it cup the body better. So just make sure you're matching your notches so you don't get to the bottom of the pant and you have a huge discrepancy. So I'm gonna do that real quick, and I'll come right back. I'm going to do that real quick, and then I'm going to press the seams open, and then I'll come right back. All right, now we've got an extremely funny looking pair of pants. So we've got this, yeah, so basically it's sewn together at the inner leg seam, and it's gonna look really funny. But now we're gonna switch to a basting stitch. So what you're gonna do is just fold the front of your pants in half, kind of, because that'll help you. These are your two backs. This is the crotch curve, so there's our zipper. And we're going to baste this seam all the way up, and you're gonna wanna make sure to be very careful that the seam lines of your waistband match up so that they look like they weren't constructed onto the pants and then put on later. And remember, there is a 1-inch seam allowance all through the waistband at this seam, and then it goes from 1 inch here at the top back down to 5/8 shortly around the notch, or a little after the notch probably. So you're just gonna wanna make sure that you keep that in mind and make sure you get, 1 inch seam allowance here at the top down to 5/8. Now I've made these pants before, and I know that I just need to do a 5/8 inch seam allowance all the way down. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. But definitely, this is gonna help with the fitting process, so definitely baste this seam, and then we'll go back and sew it after we've done our fitting. So I'm gonna do that really quick. All right, once you've sewn that seam, we're gonna open everything out. So there's the back of our pants. Not too bad of a join there at the waistband. And we are going to sew, you kind of got to flip things around here. We're going to sew the front to the back at the side seams. And you can totally, I don't know if you guys can hear my dog snoring right now, but oh my gosh. Like, do they make CPAP machines for dogs? Because mine might need it. Okay. It also might help to zip your zipper up at this point, just so it's keeping things in order. All right, so there we go. Our pants are coming together. Now I've not pressed this back seam open yet, and I recommend waiting, only because it's really hard if you have to make any changes. If you've already pressed a crease in there, it's just really annoying. So since we've only basted this so far, just leave it for right now. It doesn't need to be pressed until it's actually sewn. So for trying on for fitting purposes, we're not gonna press our seams. So now we've got our front and our back together, and again, you're gonna wanna make sure that you match up your waistbands right at that seam line. I mean, this is a baste. You could easily pull it out and make any corrections, but if you baste it and everything fits fine, then you can just sew over your basting line. You don't have to remove your basting stitches. But anyway, 1 inch seam allowance on both side seams, so make sure you take that into account. So we are going to baste the front and the back at the side seams. And then I'm gonna go ahead and press up my hem allowance and just pin it just so I can see what it looks like. But when I see you next, we will be trying things on in the mirror. Okay. Hi guys. Okay, I have got my pants on and they are horribly creased. Mostly because this is wool content, and I'm apologizing for the bra. I just threw on a tight fitting top so that we could see the pants. Okay, I'm not gonna worry about the puckering on the seam lines here, only because this has not been pressed yet and this is wool. You see my swollen stomach there. I love the way these fit, and again, I've made these before. I'm also coming unstitched at my side seam. Okay, so when basting, you may want to do a locking stitch there at the top, because I am starting to come unstitched there at the top. I am very pleased, but I have made these before. I love how they fit right here in the crotch. These should sit, now again, this will be coming up about 5/8 of an inch, ouch, too high. That waistband will be down, because once the facing, let's come closer. Once the facing is sewn on there, these should sit 1 inch below your waist approximately, which they're about there. Yeah, about 1 inch. I love the way, again, I did that alteration to the crotch. I will get pooling a little bit right in through there if I don't make that adjustment that I made earlier on that pattern. So see how it just lays a lot flatter, because again, my legs are set in on my body as opposed to out. So now is the time where you can see if there's any tweaks you need to make. If you have a hollow back, I used to have much more of one when my butt was bigger, but if you have a hollow back, you may need to take more than the inch out of this center back seam, and that's fine. I have mine actually sewn at 5/8 of an inch. But also remember, got some, oh, that's my shirt. This fabric shows everything. I also am wearing dark colored underwear. I will not do that when I wear these pants. But you can also take in things at the dart here and then just compensate by taking more in on the side seam with the waistband, or in the center back seam just at the waistband. But yeah, you can play around with those as well. I don't know how I'm going to show you the back of these. Let's see, what else? If you have pulling lines, pull lines are going to show you where you need the extra room. So lines that pull this way usually mean you need to let out a little bit in the hip. And at this point, I would just take a little seam ripper and just pop some of those basting stitches. God, you can see my pocket bags through there too. And, you know, find out how much you need to release a little bit if you're having that issue. If you have a large ratio of waist to hip, you can, you know, take in more out of the side seams if you need to. As long as everything is sitting nice. I am very much enjoying the hem here. I've used a 2-inch hem. I think the pattern just calls for 1.5 inches, but I'm using a 2-inch hem because these are pretty straight and that's gonna work. And I'm really loving, that's right where I wanted them to hit. What else? Someone had asked me a question about fitting with the different types of pants. These are definitely just a trouser. Just they're fitted through the hips, not overly fitted, and then loose in the leg. But this trouser can be made in a non-woven fabric, or not a non-woven, in a woven with non-stretch as well. So you need to keep that in mind, that these will not have negative ease. You're gonna want positive ease for these pants, especially if you're making them in a non-stretch woven. Sorry, I don't have it pinned on the inside. Sorry, got distracted. So with a pant or a jean, say like the ginger jean or the ash jean, you're gonna have negative ease because that has to be made out of a stretch fabric. So when looking at finished measurements, you do need to think that. Someone had asked that question on a comment on a different video, and I just thought I would address that. I am seeing some bubbling here, but that again is my shirt that I have hastily stuck into my pants. But yeah, this is the ease of doing the basting and being able to attach these. So once you get the fit, and again, I know that I'm not going deep into fit here because there is just such a large amount of fitting issues that can arise. I will say, if you're noticing that you're having like it really, like a lot of it cupping your butt a lot more than it's supposed to, or if it's up your crack, for lack of a better word, that actually means you need the crotch curved scooped out, and that is counterintuitive. So you would think, oh, I need more room, so I would let the seam allowance out, but that's actually not what you do. You actually sew in from the seam allowance and then cut that extra fabric out because your body needs that negative space to fill that out. So that's actually the alteration for that. Again, at the beginning of this video, I should have given you, or maybe at the beginning of part 1, I should have given you some resources on pant fitting if you're noticing different pull lines that you're not happy with. If you've got any pooling, that means that you need to take maybe some stuff out of the rise. Again, that stuff needs to be fixed with a muslin because you'll have to make those changes on the actual pattern. But as far as things being a little too tight or a little too loose, this is perfect for fitting at this point. So there you have it. So now I'm just gonna go back and sew everything that I've basted with a regular seam. And then we're gonna construct our facing and then attach it, hem the pants, finish the closure up here, and we're good to go. So I will see you back at the sewing machine. All right, so now your pants, let me zip these back up, should be completely sewn and pressed open. So there's my center back seam, and everything should be pressed open, both the side seams and the center back seam. So now we're gonna set these aside for a minute, and we're gonna construct the facing for the waistband. We're getting so close, people. All right, so you need to remember what you've done to the waistband pieces of your waistband that's on your pants. So I sewed my side seams at 1 inch, both side seams, but I sewed my center back seam at 5/8 of an inch. So you're gonna wanna replicate that on your pieces, your facing pieces is what I'm trying to say. So these will be the uninterfaced pieces of your waistband. Now, with right and left side, when you're sewing these right sides together, it's gonna look backwards, but that's because these are getting sewn onto the inside of your pants. So it will be flipped, so don't let that confuse you too bad. It will make sense when you go to put things right side together on the pants. But first we are going to sew all of our seams together. So we're going to sew the center back seams together and then sew our side seams to the center back seams. So I'm going to do that real quick, and I'm going to press everything open, and then we'll come right back. Okay, so my facing is all constructed. Again, the shorter curve is going to be what is at the top of the waistband, and the longer curve is going to be what is attached to the pants. So you have a couple of options here. You could serge the whole bottom of this if you wanted to and just not tuck anything under on the inside. You could trim the seam allowance down a little bit, although you need to be careful because your tab that tabs over, you need all of that seam allowance there. So you would actually need to clip into that notch and trim seam allowance, but you could do that and then attach bias binding. That way you could, when you flip it to the inside, it makes it really easy to stitch in the ditch from the right side to sew that down. Or you can just fold under the seam allowance, which is what I'm going to do. Fold under the seam allowance and hand stitch that to the existing, the waistband seam allowance, and it has a really clean finish that way. And since I'm going to hand stitch the hem of my pants, I think I'm going to go do this. I've been kind of having a moment with hand stitching lately, so I think I'm just going to hand stitch the inside of my waistband to my pants. So I'm not going to worry about doing any kind of a treatment to the bottom. You could go ahead and press it up if you want, but I just find sometimes there's discrepancies and I want things to catch right, and I just find it's easier to do that after everything's sewn together. So we are going to sew, the top of the waistband. So right sides together, you are going to match your facing to its corresponding waistband, and we're going to sew at 5/8 of an inch all the way around the top. Then we are going to understitch to the uninterfaced side, which is the facing. But don't go all the way to the end. In fact, on the part that overlaps the pants, stop understitching like, I don't know, maybe an inch before that notch, before the center front notch. And the same on this side. Stop understitching. I mean, you're going to sew all the way there, but stop understitching, I don't know, maybe right at the notch on the under part, or a little before you stop, because we still need to flip it over and sew our ends together. And then the overlap will have to get sewn here at the bottom as well. So I'm going to do that real quick, and then I will come right back. Alright, so I've got it stitched. The facing is stitched to the waistband, and I've understitched all the way down. You could definitely trim that seam allowance if you want to. I actually think I'm going to leave it just to give the waistband a little bit more oomph, since there's no belt loops or anything in this. So now I'm just going to go and give it a good press along that top edge, and then we're going to come back and finish the ends, and then yeah, and then I'll show you how to pin it for, see, that's the understitching, how it kind of pulls it up there. Then I'll show you how to finish off the closures for this, and then what hand sewing still needs to be done. Oh, so close. I'll be back. Okay, so I have it all nice and pressed, and eventually we will tuck this under and hand stitch this to the seam allowance. But again, You could have just finished that off with bias binding and just leave it as is and stitch in the ditch on this side. Sorry, I'm all fuzzy, I'm too close. Stitch in the ditch on this side, and that would have caught the inside, and that's definitely a legitimate way to finish the pants. But first we need to finish off our tabs. There's our left side. So we are gonna go and just flip this around, right sides together. And you're gonna wanna unfold. So we want everything unfolded. Okay, I'm gonna show you a little trick. So we've got the fly here. We're gonna kind of do a burrito method a little bit. It just, I feel like it makes it cleaner when you have the transition from a flap going over to the rest of the pant. Definitely if you're doing it by machine. Excuse me, by machine. But basically we're gonna turn this like this. So this is the front part of the pant, and here we have the extension. And we wanna sew these right side together, but obviously, you know, the pants are in the way there. So we're going to just fold the pants up at that point. And then we're going to pull, sorry, I'm literally just rolling the pants up. And then we're gonna pull the facing right sides together with the waistband, and we're gonna match notches. So right there. And we're gonna put a pin. You do have to be careful that you're not sewing a folded up pair of pants in there. But you can kind of feel right in there. So now I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna sew 5/8 of an inch down, 5/8 of an inch over, and I'm just gonna overlap the stitches that are there from sewing the waistband on by just a few stitches, and try and catch those pants in there, but just barely. So I'm gonna stop really right about that pin, and you can kind of see that the line of stitching starts like right there, but the pants, I can feel the lump right there where the pants start. So I'm literally just gonna sew a few stitches over that, and then we'll turn it, we'll clip our corners and turn it right side out. So I'll be right back. All right, and I find it helpful just to flip everything kind of right side out. I mean, you're not gonna be able to flip this completely because it's without a lot of work. But yeah, I didn't catch anything weird. See, the front of the pant looks just fine right there. So I like to do that before I clip. So now we're going to clip. To clip our ends and clip our corners. And then I use a knitting needle to turn mine right side out. I'll do that right here. So this one's a little trickier just because you're kind of making it's the tab, making like a tube. All right, once we've got a majority of it out, I just popped through the whole, you want to be careful because I just popped through, this is a loosely woven fabric. Luckily I didn't tear anything, but I did just pop through that fabric. So you do want to be careful. Do as I say, not as I do. Okay, so that's what that looks like on the inside. So again, we will fold this up. Let me do that real quick. I do have some stray threads there, it'll get trimmed. But we will turn this up and we will start hand stitching right there and hand stitch all the way around. But there we go, our tab is done, and I will clip, oh, that'll just pull out. So that our tab is done. So now on the other side of the pants, where you have the underlap, we're gonna do the same thing. So again, there's our underlap. We are going to fold it up So this is how it was sewn to the waistband, like so. And we're gonna fold the pants out of the way so that we can pull that up. So again, we're going to stitch. We're going to stitch just the 5/8 at the end, so it should finish relatively close. Oh, that's why. Hold on, I've trimmed the seam allowance in this area, and that's why those aren't matching. You gotta remember things like that. All right, so I've got the pants folded in, and I'm gonna sew just a few stitches right here, because that's where the pants are connected, and then I'm gonna stitch up the 5/8 of an inch there. And again, I trimmed the waist seam allowance, not all the way through the tab, but a little bit when I was pressing, and I just had forgotten I had done that. So they weren't matching up, but they're fine now. So just remind yourself if you do those things. So I'm gonna sew this, and I'll be right back. And again, I just want to flip this right side out kind of to make sure. And again, I like the way that that's finished. So I will go back in and trim. And then carefully use my knitting needle just to kind of get that out there. Okay. There's the outside. And there's the inside, which of course, we just need to fold this under and hand stitch this closed. All right. I'm going to come up to my face. Hi. Okay, you're getting me without makeup, and now you can see my studio lights, but I just want to finish off these pants. Okay, so what we're going to do, let me zip these up. What we still have left to do is this tab that goes over. So the hook and bar are going to be attached to the tab and the corresponding spot down here. And we're going to put, there we go, sorry. We're gonna put a buttonhole on the inside right here, and then a button right there. So does that make sense? So when the pants are worn, we've got a hook on this with a bar here, and then we've got a buttonhole here with a button right here. So the button gets buttoned, and then the hook gets hooked, and your pants are fastened. All right? Okay, now as far as the hems, again, I'm gonna hand sew my hem. I'm gonna do a blind by hand. I have mine pressed up already. I'm actually just gonna serge my hems, my bottom hems, because it's just easy. and then I'm gonna hand stitch those up into place. But you could, again, finish this with bias binding. You could press them into place, and then you could fold under if you wanted to, and do that by hand or by machine if you didn't mind having a hem line on your pant. So that's kind of just up to you. So that is it for this sew along, guys. I'm just going to do the handwork and then get my button and hook and eye, and hopefully you've already seen all of that, all of the finishes at the first of the video. So again, if you have any questions on this sew along, please leave them down below. Give me a thumbs up if you like this type of video because it helps me plan, and I will see you guys soon. Bye!